Hello, this is Turner Sperry, and today I'll be talking about Celebration for Orchestra, which is an orchestral piece that we're learning here at the University of Northern Iowa by Chen Yi. And whereas this is mainly for UNI cellists, it can be applied, a lot of the stuff I'll be talking about can be applied to all string instruments, and hopefully it can be useful for the UNI cellists in terms of practicing for this, different ways to practice, and maybe some techniques introduced, but also hopefully it's useful for other people as well. So anyway, starting off, I figure we'd start from the beginning, kind of work our way through, get to some nasty passages that we have the cellos have. So I'll play the beginning from about until measure 8, I think. So here's the beginning. So there's the beginning. So there's some tricky things in here. So in measure 2, we have a high B flat right off the bat. So to go about this, I use finger mapping, and we've talked about this a little bit in studio, but it was rushed, so didn't have a lot of time. But so this B flat, so it's a third finger, so I have my third finger on B flat, and I know that my first finger is on G here. And so to kind of help, to put it in better words, the note I'm aiming for is B flat, but I know by using my other fingers as anchors to kind of give me a sense of where I am on the fingerboard, that my first finger is always going to be on G. And it just happens to be the second note that I have. But even if it wasn't, I would know that my first finger was on G, which is a minor third up. So that's a little technique to do, so that you're just not going up there, oh, I hope it's a B flat, but that you actually have a way of going about making sure it's in tune every time. And actually, I forgot to mention the beginning here, the first measure, the Bartok pizzicato. It's unlike our normal pizzicato where we pull the string in a pulling motion across our body. It's a pulling motion from underneath the string up vertically. So we kind of sounds gnarly, but it's against the fingerboard, and that's kind of creates a percussive sound, which is what the composer wanted. So, but anyway, back to this measure 2 and going on to measure 3. So we have to go for that D pickup, and so to go about that, same thing with the B flat and the G. Using that first finger to know that I'm going to be able to hit that B flat. I know that my hand, after playing this low B flat, I know that my thumb is going to go on A. Oh, there we go. Thumb on A, and then D with my third finger. And once you bring your thumb up, usually what I've experienced so far, at least beginning thoughts on how to go about this in terms of thumb mapping and creating a better sense of where you are on the fingerboard. I usually think of, especially if I'm using my third finger, I think of my thumb being a fourth away from it, interval fourth away from it. So we hit the B flat. I know my thumb is going to hit A. My third finger is on D. 5 1 5 1. So I use that, and all the fingers in between your two fingers. I'll talk about that later, but for now we just have a D right here. So I would practice this by hitting that low B flat after you do that one. Go from here, and if you notice, sorry, I didn't do it right. If you notice, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm not just going from the B flat and going to D and hoping I hit it. I'm actually like a millisecond before I actually lay down my finger to get the D out. I put my thumb down to kind of give myself, all right, B flat, here's the A, and there's the D. um, before I pluck. It's a millisecond, but it's just enough time for me to really solidify where I'm at and to then go on after that. Um, so one thing you could do to practice this is you could do. It's easier with if I can show you on the bow, but pizzicato is kind of hard to get that out. But you could and kind of adding that extra step, even though there's no A there. And see, I mean, I'm even kind of, it takes me a little bit, but doing that, getting a kind of a step motion in there, it helps kind of solidify that where that is, and then eventually eliminate that, and muscle memory will take over, and you'll be able to just hit it. So that's a little practice technique I would do. Like I said, going back and forth, adding an extra step, and just taking your time. It is a hard thing to get down. But anyway, it's pretty easy after that. Five, measure six, kind of the same thing. My third finger's on the A. If I go back, my first finger's on F sharp. I just know when I go to A on the A string, that my anchor note, my anchor finger is going to be on F sharp for that little run there. So, but that's the beginning. So going on, let's see, this is measure 15. We have these 16ths, and it is a little tricky because again, it's a fast piece. So we're going for kind of a lighter stroke here. We don't want to be too heavy, too scrubby, because then it's going to make all these runs that we have coming up pretty messy. And we also don't want to be too light because it's just hard to control. But we want something around the middle. And if we can make it even as well, there's a tendency to where the down bow is a little bit longer and heavier than the up bow, and if we can eliminate that, so it's instead of to an even sound, that'd be great, and that would also make all the runs, the rest of the piece, so much easier for everybody. So going on to the run, the run itself, in measure 18. I'll do it a little slow, but so here it is. So that's a little slower than what it is. It's actually pretty slow, but I figured I would kind of let you guys see how it goes. So the first measure here, measure 18, how to go about this. It's probably the easier one out of the three variations we have of this thing, of this run, mainly because there's some open strings and you're staying within this kind of first to second position kind of range, so it's not too tricky. But there's a pattern in the sense that you kind of shift every two notes. So if you can master that, so shift, kind of shifting 1, 2, shift. So one way to go about this is you can just do the first two notes of every beat. So like you do this. To kind of get those first shifts out of the way. And then you can do the opposite of that and do the end of every beat, the last two of every 16th run. So just the, and then slowly incorporating those. And you can even just do a beat at a time too. And then eventually kind of put piecing them together. So. And in terms of practicing with a metronome, I would heavily recommend this. Like I said, 126 is the gold tempo, but I would say if you can, I know when I started, I probably started around 70, which is barely over halfway. So it seems like it's like such a waste to go that far back and do this, but it really does help. It's much better to do that and work your way up rather than trying to do 126 and just pile drive through it and fail everything. So every single time. So um, and one little rule, typically what I do if I'm getting the concept down, I'll go up by like maybe four BPM, making sure that I don't have any mistakes before I move on. If you do have a mistake and you move on and go faster, it's only going to become more of a problem and more will arise. Um, so make sure there's no problems before you bump it up. But if you are having a trouble with doing this, which I mean, it's very understandable, I would say do a ratio of going up by four, maybe going back by two, going up by four, back two, four, up four, back two, kind of that pattern. So you're still moving up, but it's just at a more steady pace rather than four, 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 four. But if you're getting it, by all means, by all means. But for trickier sections, sometimes you have to take that little extra step to kind of control yourself as you work your way up the tempo. So this one in measure 18 is not terrible. It's the one in 19 that's the tricky one. So here we have, again, this is when the pattern actually comes into play here in terms of fingerings. So we have a 2-4-1-3, 2-4-1-3, 2-4-1-3 pattern here. For at least the first three beats of that. So again, just like in the previous one, I would do the first two of every beat. That kind of gets you the D string, the shifts required for that, and then doing the opposite of that, the A string. That gets you the shifts on the A string, and then it's a matter of compiling those together. One tendency I have, and I'm not sure if everybody's experiencing this too, but on the, let's see, in measure 20, let's see, 1, 2, 3, beat 3. So this is beat 1, this is, and then beat 3. My ear wants me to go to a D, but it's actually an E flat. So that's a little thing to listen out for. It's a little bit higher than what you think. That's where my ear wants to go, but I have to an E flat instead. And then you're making a clear distinction between the A flat and the B flat and the G and the A natural in the and of 3 and beat in the first of beat 4. So yeah, take it slow. Work your way up. Even like I said in the previous one, maybe just to do a beat at a time, and just do different variations of it to try to put it together, and you guys will do just fine. But moving on, I figure I'll make a separate video about all those like really those really hoppy parts. But I figured I'd go to like measure 67. So 67, it's the same thing, the exact same thing. Actually, they just put it in tenor clef. So making sure that you really know how to do it the first way, it actually just make it easier. I mean, unless you want to really take the time to, visually be like, all right, those are the notes, blah, blah, and do that. If you just know it from the first time, then it's the exact same thing. Do it the same way. So I think it'll be better if you just do it like that instead of trying to think of it as a separate section when it's really the same thing. But going on to this gnarly section at measure 71 until like 75. So we have a bunch of thumb position things here. So I figure, let's see, I will go ahead and play Yeah, I'll just go ahead and play from the beat 4 of 68. It's the previous stuff, so that's the 71. And then 73. So that's about what we're going for. It's again slower, but so the biggest thing here, talking about 71 until 75, one of the biggest things right off the bat is to hit that C that we have from the high E that we have in measure 70. Um, so one thing I do here, if we look, so let's see, we're here in measure 69 with that high E. So next note we have is the major third down to the C. But if we were to look, that next note, a C, the next note is a D, which is higher, of course. So we should probably make sure whatever position we're in that the D is the highest note and not the C, because we have to move up again. So the E, right there. So we're back in like this kind of stereotypical thumb position, right on the harmonic of the A. But to get there, we were on the E. So to do that, I would keep your hand frame the same and just move it back a whole step, not a half step, but a whole step, and stay in the same hand shape, and then you'll be ready for the beginning of 71. So let's go. Let's see, down a whole step. You're right there. So let's see. So again, knowing that my thumb is on A and using that as my anchor to get there every time will definitely help. And so the next thing after we hit this thumb position here is to get the second shift down. So so we're here and then going down. That's a tricky one. So again, using my thumb and using my other fingers as anchors to know where I'm at. A up here, bump, 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 and then going down, I know that my thumb is on the E as an anchor. So, and I should say that you don't always have to use your thumb as an anchor. You don't always have to use a certain finger. It's just I like to use my thumb whenever I have like a really solid position spot that I can go off of. So I know the E is here because that's the first note of fourth position, and that's a really obviously common and familiar spot for me. So I know my thumb is there, so I can easily do whatever I need to be doing in that position. You can just as easily use the second finger, which should be on the G there, as your anchor, as long as you know where everything else is. The thumb is also nice because then your thumb is there, and then your fingers are just everywhere else, wherever they need to be interval wise. Whereas if you use your like a middle finger or your first finger, then you still have to kind of know where your thumb is going and everything else behind it and in front of it. So it's kind of easy to just have your foundation as your thumb being the anchor, then you can go off of that. But anyway, so we have here, you're going over on the D string, and then from here you're in just regular positions. And that part's not too bad. So again, here I would do the same practice techniques, doing maybe the first of each one. Of each beat, and then likewise doing the second part of each beat. So instead of we do, oh sorry, again doing the backside of each of those beats, the last 2/16 of each beat, and that will actually, doing the backside will actually help you do the thumb positions a little bit more. Doing the thumb one, and and thumb 1, and then 1, 3, and then kind of getting those shifts solidified. And you can even go in between again, kind of going back and forth between them. And kind of just really knowing where you're at, going back and forth and really solidifying those. So that's the first one. The second one that I played, same concept there. We're gonna so we have our second finger on a B flat, C, G, and an A. So my thumb is on G, and I did that just because when I was figuring this out, I know that I can do 2, 3, and then my thumb, and so my thumb is going to be on G, and it's going to be my anchor in this scenario. So I know that my B flat is a major or a minor third up, and then a half or a whole step, and then my thumb, and then a whole step up. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about too. Knowing just because your thumb is here and your third finger or whatever finger is up there, you still need to know the intervals between your fingers and what the notes are. So, like here where we are right now, the B flat, that's the certain hand frame. So we have a whole step between the thumb and the first finger, a half step between the finger 2 and 3, and then a whole step between, a whole step between thumb and 1, half step between 1 and 2, and then a whole step between 2 and 3. So it kind of creates that kind of shape. Whereas if you did kind of a major, so this creates that kind of sonority. If we were to do like a major scale, it'd be a whole step between thumb and 1, whole step between 1 and 2, and then a half step between 2 and 3 to create that. But in this case, we're doing to create that sonority of it. So here we're doing, and then going back here with my thumb, my anchor being on the D, and doing that. It's the kind of same sonority here, where you have a whole step, half step, whole step between them. So it's, and then you're just crossing over, and then regular positions after that. But yeah, again, I would just kind of go back and forth between them. And, pick up the pace, and just, really solidify where your thumb is going every time with the intervals in there as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I would do some of these sections. And again, with metronome, making sure it's nice and stable, not doing anything too fast, too soon. And keeping that bow stroke nice and even, and working it up, working your metronome marking up, make sure that you're not only just making your fingers faster and doing the passages faster, but also making sure your bow is keeping up with that stroke and not just getting lazy and doing something like that, trying to just keep up with it, but rather keeping up with the actual technique of how you're going to do that. So that's a little bit about this section. I know it's a long video, but hopefully that was useful. I know this whole thumb mapping thing, it's somewhat of a new idea to me. This past summer, I was introduced to it at a summer festival, because before I would just kind of, I'd have an idea of where it was and I'd go for it, and I'd, kind of get it sometimes not. So it's still even a new concept for me, which is why you see me still kind of going, trying things out and maybe not always being in tune the first time. But it's such a helpful tool, and it really makes the upper 2/3 of the fingerboard less scary than what we all kind of portray it to be. So hopefully, yeah, like I said, hopefully that's been really useful, and hope to see you all in rehearsal, and hope to hear back from anybody watching this to see if it was helpful. Any comments would be great. And yeah, thank you so much.